Tony, it was an astute comment and question out of you in your interactions with Billy Fessler, quarterback's coach, where you were, I believe it was your voice that asked, well, these guys, this quarterback unit, these quarterbacks are supposed to be the toughest guys in the building. We are talking about football here. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm embellishing on your question. But there's a physical nature to that toughness part of it. And these guys never get touched. How are they going to be proved to be the toughest guys in the building? Was that a sufficient response to your question?
Yeah, it was something I also asked Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keynotes, because Ryan Day put it out there earlier in the week, or maybe even previous to that. Quarterbacks have to be the toughest guys on the team. So how do you do that when you're dressed in a black jersey? If somebody touches you, they might get kicked off the team. They are protected like, key witness in a high level trial. But how do they show toughness? And the answer is basically it's just doing everything 100%. Most of the answers are about mental toughness and knowing your job and executing it properly. Even Julian Sayin even said things like just finishing your drills full speed and finishing your handoffs. But it's the preparation, it's your teammates seeing you work. Billy Fessler even mentioned, like, imagine you're Austin Seerveld watching your own, going over your own clips. And as you're doing that, you're seeing, say, Julian Sayin or Lincoln Keenholz just taking mental reps while Tavian St. Clair is throwing the ball. Like, you see how engaged the quarterbacks are, even when they're not the ones taking the reps. That is a mental toughness. That is toughness. That shows you that they are engaged in everything and are preparing for everything. And Lincoln Keenholz said, you're trying to show that you can be counted on to pick up a 4th and 2, and to when you are in that situation, everybody has confidence in you. And that was one of the things that Will Howard brought to the team. When he's in the huddle, everybody has complete confidence in him. And that's something that these quarterbacks are trying to bring. And it's something that Will Howard he calmed everybody down. And that's a kind of toughness as well, when you've got the mental toughness to keep everybody else calm. And so that's a process that all of these guys are going through, trying to show that they can do it and answer the call every time. And as Billy Fessler said, it's like, make the plays. When it's your time to make the plays, are you making them? That's another form of toughness. So it's an interesting question, because, again, they can't be touched. They are protected. They're eggs in a carton. So how do you make an egg tough? You can't beat it. That's for sure.
We did talk to the quarterbacks, and very impressed talking to all three of them. Billy Fessler, the quarterback's coach, was asked, well, can you handicap this competition right now? And he goes, it's really not a competition. And when you think about it in terms, as of right now, it's not. You think about it in terms of what they're trying to do. This is the beginning of the new football season for Ohio State, 2025 football. You don't just pick up right where 2024 ended up and start, at that level and go from there. You are starting back at ground zero, and particularly you're starting with a bunch of guys who've never played college football before on a Saturday afternoon in Ohio Stadium or Michigan Stadium or any of these other places. So what you have to do is put one brick down, put that, level of, cement around it, and then put another brick down and put a little bit of level cement around it. And you stack one brick on top of another in these spring days. So it's all about the fundamentals. Like, there was an incident yesterday where they couldn't get lined up properly, and Coach Day just kicked the entire offense out of the drill. He's like, okay, the period was running out. It was like 30 seconds left. They could get it right, but he was so upset. He's like, how do you expect to run a play if you can't get lined up properly? Just get out of here. Just kind of kicked them on to the next period, and, let them know that this game is so intricate, it's so involved, and you just to just expect perfection on day one, and who's dropping passes, who's missing passes, these kind of things. It's not really about that, this early in spring football. It's about, learning the game, fundamentals, taking the proper steps, making the right reads, all these other things that happen in the course of the game. And I've been impressed. I've told any number of people they didn't go out and get a veteran quarterback, and I'm not sure that they really need one like a Will Howard last year. I think that the three guys that they have are very talented throwing the football athletically. And, I think there will be a game in the season that they lose, probably because whoever is this quarterback, this young guy, is going to throw 2 or 3 picks. It's just a fact of life. It's just something that has always happened, for time immemorial, that somebody is just not going to show up on third base. I mean, it just happens. So, but I think they can win big with any of these three. I don't know about a national championship big, but I think they can certainly contend in the Big Ten and be in the playoff, no doubt, with any of these three quarterbacks. Even, Lincoln Kienholz, I like him a lot, and he's shown a lot by sticking around. But the last thing I'll say open up is just Tavian St. Clair. They asked him, you're just getting here, and you're competing and whatever. He says, no, I don't really look at it like that. I'm just trying to get better every day. And if everybody maintains that viewpoint and doesn't really focus on the destination, but on each step along the way to get to that destination, then this team's got a pretty good chance of being pretty good.
Yeah, somebody asked him to ask Billy Fessler to, how close is the race? And he's like, we are way, way far away from even getting to the point where we're talking about how close it is.
We've started a race. Yeah, the race hasn't started.
So how close is it? Well, they've still got they're not even close to the first turn. They're not even into the first straightaway yet. And there's a lot of time to go. I was really impressed with talking with Lincoln Kienholz, really all of these guys. I didn't get a chance to talk with Tavian St. Clair, but I listened to most of it. Like, all of these guys are very composed, and that wasn't the case previously when we would talk to Lincoln Kienholz. And it was a guy that had some nerves to him when he was talking to people. Also had some nerves when he would play, and he didn't get to play much last year, but he's a guy that has really grown. He's the oldest guy in the room. So he's begun not just acting like it, but it's like, I am that guy. So, I know people are looking towards me, and I can provide them with, leadership, knowledge, whatever. And that shows just in a little thing like an interview session, but also I thought he was pretty good throwing the ball yesterday. He was pretty crisp. We didn't get there's no one-on-ones at this point that we're getting to see. So you're throwing against air, but it is interesting to just watch these three and listen to them and talk to them. And none of this seems too big for them. They're all giving the right answers. And I think you can credit Will Howard with some of that, getting to watch Will Howard last year. Even Tavian St. Clair got to watch him, got the front row seat in the playoffs. And so one of the things that Julian Sand talked about was, they're all trying to be a leader in this room and of the team, not just the room, but you're trying to be a leader of the team. And Will Howard was legendary basically at this point now for how he led. And Julian Sand said, he came in and, he was well liked by everybody. Everybody liked him. And then I asked him, does everybody like you? And he's like, I hope so. He's trying to make sure, like, he's trying to build these relationships with everybody so that, there's no friction or conflict, or people have faith in you. The more they like you, the more they trust you, that sort of thing. And it's just interesting because it's not just with the quarterback battle. It's not just who throws the most accurate ball or who is generally, it comes down to who moves the ball the best without the turnovers, but there's also who is the best leader, who is the toughest, who's the guy that can get knocked down and get back up on 3rd and 8 and get the job done. And so that's, until you can start getting knocked down, and really that doesn't happen until the games themselves, but they'll know enough by August. August 19th is usually about when they name a starter based on past years. But yeah, it's not just throwing the ball that is going to win this job, and it's going to be interesting to watch all the way through.
Well, you say that Lincoln Kienholz has grown. Yeah, he's grown from 185 pounds to 207. That's significant. Obviously, he was watching Will Howard all last year. And what does Howard hit the scales at? Probably 230.
Well, he's a big boy. Howard came in at like 245, so he had to drop like 10 pounds because he came in too heavy from his Kansas State days when he was like, having to run the ball 15 times. And like, you don't need to do that here. So you can go ahead and drop some weight. You don't need to bulk up for us.
back to the here and now, guys. Does it matter that Fessler, was he meaning anything when asked about Julian Sayen's quick release? I don't know if that's on a scouting report somewhere, or this is just common knowledge that he's got a Dan Marino kind of release or something.
He got very interesting when he was talking about the quick release. He says you don't just win the job by having a quick release. You've got to have arm strength. And he said we're working with Julian to build his arm strength. So that was a very candid moment where he told you straight out that, yes, we like Julian Sayen a lot, but he is not a finished product to win games at this level just yet. So he has got, and I thought that in the spring game too. He threw one wounded duck interception down the middle of the field, and tough throw. I think it was back across the grain or something, and yet that's a throw that a Big Ten quarterback's got to make. And we'll see. And I'm being unfair calling it a wounded duck. If a wounded duck is a 2, and a bullet is an 8 or a 9. That was about a 5 or a 6, that throw that he made that got intercepted. It just got to be got to drive it in there just a little bit better than that.
Well, that's what I was getting to with the comment about the quick release from the reporter and then the comeback. I didn't know if that was just kind of a matter of fact. I would say this about anybody. We're working on his arm strength, or this is directed at Julian Sayen. We're working on his arm development.
Well, because I thought it was interesting. He said, we don't want to sacrifice arm strength for quick release. So it's like, yeah, quick release is great. But if it's, if it doesn't get there in time, then it doesn't matter how quick you are. You need the ball to get there, on time. So yeah, I think they're working on arm strength with everybody. But Julian Sayen, he's gotten stronger as the past year has gone on. He's added 10, 15 pounds since he's arrived, and he looks more the part now. But I don't know if it's the fact that everybody talks about his quick release, but it's just Fessler maybe calming people down. Is like, look, that's great, but it's going to take more than that. And I don't think they're singling him out, because I think they're working on that with everybody.
But sometimes someone will throw a football when you get to compare these quarterbacks, and there's just a different whistle through the air, a different look, a different zip, all of that business. I saw the videotape that was showing the 3 guys lined up side by side throwing, whatever. You couldn't see what kind of passes, but basically outs to the outside and one quarterback in the middle. Then I assume that they shuffle them around. While we're on the subject of velocity concerning Julian Sayen, do we think that there's a differentiation between these 3 guys in regards to arm strength and arm talent?
That's a good one. I think TV St. Clair obviously has got the biggest frame and potentially the biggest arm, but again, he's got the least experience, and this is, again, what are we weighing here? What's more important? Well, winning football games is what's going to be most important. So, and that's managing the team and being a leader and converting third downs and all these other things. So. Who's going to be best at that? And that's what they're looking for. So, we can talk about specific, traits for all these guys, and some of them are going to stack up really highly in some and not going to stack up so highly in others. Sayen, I think somebody stood next to him and said they list you at like 6'1", but I think you're really like 6'2". And he goes, I know. I think I'm 6'2" as well. Let's see what they have him. They have him at 6'1", 203. 6'1" is about the shortest that you'd probably ever want someone to be to play at the Big Ten level. I think it's just so difficult with all the big offensive and defensive linemen in front of you to kind of see the field perhaps at 6'1". But, does that count against him in this whole quarterback thing? Well, if he's not making plays and not moving the sticks because of it, it surely does. So, I'm keeping an open mind on the whole thing. It sounds like everybody's got the right mindset going into the beginning of this. And, it's amazing where the starting point is and what the end point will be. It's going to be fascinating to see how we get there.
Yeah, watching them, like I always go back to 2019 when it was Justin Fields throwing against Matthew Baldwin, and it was like a complete differentiation between, you knew who was throwing the ball just by watching the ball. You didn't have to see the quarterback. And I haven't seen that from these three guys. They all look pretty similar in terms of like the ball is pretty flat in terms of arm strength. And you're watching some of the 1-inch drill that they were doing yesterday where you've got a baseball backstop fence that is placed maybe 20 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards, whatever downfield. And they have to throw the ball like just over the top of the fence, and you want to get as close as possible to the fence.
It's a great drill.
It is, and they move this thing all around, and the fence represents an intermediate defender, like a linebacker dropping into the zone, and you can't loft it over the fence, or else like the invisible safety will come and knock it down before it gets to the receiver. So you've got to have arm strength, and you've got to have you don't want to have any wasted movement of the football. And I thought they all did pretty well. Like Lincoln Keynotes did really well on that drill. Tavian St. Clair is still getting it down. Like he had some loop to it, but it's not because of lack of arm strength. He's just, he doesn't want to hit the fence yet, and that confidence isn't there. And Sayin was fine. So I think from what I've seen so far, and we haven't seen a ton of like deep outs from the opposite hash. I don't think there is a big differentiator. I don't think there's one guy who is really battling uphill in terms of trying to catch up in arm strength.